The strange proposal. The sun was setting on the dry red planet. Jack, a human engineer, was finishing his repairs on an old water pump outside his small outpost. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked around. Nothing but empty land, rocks and silent wind. He liked it that way. Jack lived alone on this forgotten colony planet. No noise, no cities, no orders, just quiet. After losing his family years ago in a war, he didn't want company. Machines were easier than people, but that evening everything changed. He heard a sound, soft footsteps on the gravel. Jack turned sharply. No one ever came out this far. At the edge of the camp stood a strange figure. It was a woman, but not human. She was tall, thin, and trembling. Her skin had a soft purple glow and her eyes were large and silver. Her clothes were worn out, almost falling apart. She looked half-starved, her hands shaking as she held something close to her chest. Jack reached for his tool belt. Not a weapon, but just in case. The alien woman stepped forward slowly like she was scared he'd run. Then in a quiet, broken voice, she said, "Please, marry me." Jack blinked. He was sure he misheard. "What?" The woman opened the rolled-up paper she carried. It looked like some legal document, written in alien script with a glowing blue stamp. She looked into his eyes and said again, "Please, I will clean. I will cook. Just marry me, or they will take my children." Jack froze. He wasn't sure if this was a joke, a trap, or something worse. "Who are you?" he asked. "My name is Sarah," she replied. "I am a widow. My time is ending. The law, it says I must marry again within 3 moons, or they take my children from me." Jack stared at her. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her voice shook, not just from fear, but from shame. "Why me?" Jack asked. "You are the last human on this zone." The others said no. "You have a registered ID. That is all I need." Jack looked down at the document she held. It had space for 2 thumbprints. One was already marked. Hers. "You don't even know me," Jack said. She gave a weak smile. "You are not cruel. That is enough." Jack didn't know what to say. This was madness. He fixed machines. He didn't save alien widows, but something in her eyes made him pause. They weren't just scared, they were begging. Still, Jack shook his head. "I can't marry someone I don't know. This is too much." Sarah nodded. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She simply turned and walked away, holding the paper close to her chest like a dying wish. Jack stood there for a long time. The wind blew. The sun disappeared. The stars came out. But his mind couldn't stop replaying her words. "Or they will. Take my children." The next morning, Jack found the paper lying by the edge of his camp. She had dropped it by mistake. He picked it up. He didn't understand the language, but he knew pain when he saw it. The paper had a photo on the back, 2 small alien children with big eyes standing beside Sarah. One of them had no shoes. The other was coughing. Jack sighed and shook his head. Why me? But deep down he already knew, because no one else would help her. That night he stayed awake. He thought about the war that took his wife, his daughter, the fire, the running, the way he screamed her name and no one came. Maybe this time he could be the one who showed up. Maybe this time, someone wouldn't have to suffer alone. Jack walked across the rocky land, following small footprints in the dust. The alien woman, Sarah, had disappeared into the hills last night, but she had left behind the marriage paper and a photo that Jack couldn't forget. 2 kids, cold eyes, thin arms. Jack didn't know their names. He didn't know anything about alien laws. But something deep in his heart told him he had to find them. After an hour of walking, Jack reached a narrow cave hidden behind large rocks. A torn cloth was hanging at the entrance. He stepped closer and called softly, "Sarah, it's me, the human." No reply. He stepped inside carefully. The cave was dark and cold. In one corner, Sarah sat curled up with her children. The little ones were quiet, wrapped in thin blankets. One of them had a deep cough, wheezing with every breath. Sarah's eyes widened when she saw Jack. She stood up quickly, protecting her children. "I'm not here to harm you," Jack said, raising his hands. "You left something behind." He placed the marriage paper on the ground. Sarah didn't move. "I thought about what you said," Jack added. "You're running from something. I want to understand." Sarah looked at him, unsure. Then she slowly sat down again, pulled her children close, and began to speak. "In my world," she said softly, "a widow is not allowed to raise children alone. It is called the Code of Purity. If she does not find a new mate in 3 moon cycles, the system sends collectors. They take the children and give them to a stronger family." Jack frowned. "Stronger? They mean richer," Sarah said, bitterly. "Or with power." She pointed to the child coughing. "He is my youngest, born just days before my husband died in the raids. Since then, I have been running, hiding." Jack looked at the small boy. He didn't look older than 3 human years. His breathing was shallow. "Can't you fight this law? Tell someone it's unfair?" Sarah gave a tired smile. "On my planet, no one listens to a poor widow, and especially not to one who begs." Jack sighed. He sat down across from her. "I'm not the hero type," he admitted. "I came here to escape people, to fix machines and forget everything." Sarah looked away. "I won't lie to you," he added. "I don't know anything about being a husband again, but maybe I can do one thing." She looked up, her eyes hopeful. "I'll take the marriage test," Jack said. "I'll try." Sarah shook her head. "It's not that simple. You need to pass the covenant rite." "What's that?" "It's an old custom. A test of strength, truth, and protection. The marriage only becomes legal after that. Without it, the bond is not honored under galactic law." Jack raised an eyebrow. "And what happens if I fail?" "You cannot marry me, and the collectors will come for my children." Silence filled the cave. The children stirred in their sleep. Jack stood up. "Then we'd better start. Tell me what I need to do." Later that day, Sarah led Jack to a sacred place in the forest. It was called the Grove of Decision. Vines twisted around tall, glowing trees. In the center stood a stone pillar with ancient markings. "This place is watched by the tribal AI," Sarah explained. "It remembers old laws. It will test you. If you lie, it will know." Jack took a deep breath. "Let's do it." He stepped forward. The pillar lit up with blue light. A mechanical voice echoed. "State your purpose, human." Jack spoke clearly. "To protect this woman and her children, to offer shelter, food, and safety." The light changed to red. "Do you love her?" Jack paused. He looked at Sarah. She watched him tense. "Not yet," Jack said truthfully, "but I want to. I want to try." The light flickered, then turned green. Truth accepted. Next trial. Protection. Suddenly, robotic arms came from the ground, one aimed at the children. Jack didn't think. He ran and stood between them, shielding them with his body. A burst of air hit his side, knocking him down. He groaned, coughing from the impact. The light on the pillar turned bright green. Protection confirmed. Sarah rushed to help him up. "You passed." But Jack only looked at the kids, making sure they were safe. That night back at his outpost, Jack looked at the stars through his window. He had passed the first part of the test, but something in him was changing. This wasn't just about a law anymore, it was about them. And maybe a second chance at family. The wind outside howled as night fell on the quiet outpost. Jack sat by the heater, watching the alien children sleep on a thick blanket. For the first time, they weren't cold. Their tiny bodies were curled up beside each other, safe. Sarah stood in a corner, arms folded, eyes watching everything. She didn't say much. Jack handed her a warm cup. "It's just broth," No meat. I wasn't sure what you eat. She took it carefully. Thank you. They haven't slept like this in weeks. Jack nodded. They're quiet. They're scared, Sarah said. They learned not to make noise while hiding. Jack sat down across from her. What are their names? The older one is Rico. He is strong, but he hides it. The younger one, the sick one, is Tavi. Jack looked over at the coughing child. Tavi's chest moved fast, shallow breaths. His skin had strange purple marks. He's very sick. I know, Sarah said softly. We had no medicine, no heat, just caves. Jack stood up. He went to his cabinet and pulled out an old medical kit. He hadn't used it in years, but some human supplies were still good. Fever patches, liquid pain relievers, even a basic scanner. I can try to help, Jack said. I'm not a doctor, but I know machines. Sarah didn't stop him. Jack scanned Tavi. The results showed signs of infection and lung damage from cold exposure. Nothing fatal yet, but it was getting close. I'll give him something now, Jack said, gently placing the patch on Tavi's chest. He needs warmth. We'll keep the heater close. Sarah's voice was low. You didn't have to do all this. Jack shrugged. You didn't have to beg a stranger to marry you. But here we are. Sarah smiled a little at that. For a few moments they just sat quietly. Outside the wind blew harder. Inside it was warm, peaceful. Then Rico opened his eyes. He stared at Jack, unsure. Slowly he sat up and looked around. Where are we? He asked in a trembling voice. Jack smiled. Somewhere safe. Rico crawled to Sarah and hugged her. Then he looked up at Jack again. Are you my new father? Sarah flinched. Jack didn't answer right away. He looked into the boy's eyes, big, silver, filled with fear. I'm someone who wants to protect you, Jack finally said. I don't know how to be a father, but I'll try. Rico nodded slowly. Okay. Then he lay back down and fell asleep again. Jack looked at Sarah. She was blinking fast. He hasn't spoken to anyone in weeks, she whispered. Jack didn't know what to say, so he simply added more wood to the heater and sat beside her. The next morning, Jack stepped outside to fetch parts from his shed. The cold air bit at his skin. He looked at the empty land around him, then back at the warm light coming from inside his home. It had been so long since anyone else lived there, so long since he heard a child's voice. When he came back in, Sarah was awake and holding the scanner. Tavi's fever is lower, she said, a soft smile on her face. He slept through the night. Jack grinned. That's the first time someone said that about this place. Usually people just complain it smells like oil. Sarah chuckled, lightly. It smells like safety. Jack placed some tools on the table. Tomorrow we'll go to the southern ridge. There's an old solar well. If it still works, we'll have extra power. Sarah tilted her head. You're making plans now. He nodded. Yeah. I guess. I want you to stay. She stepped closer, voice low. You're not doing this out of pity? No, Jack said. I lost a family once. Maybe I don't deserve a second one, but I can't ignore what I see. You're a good mother. The kids need someone, and I... He stopped. She waited. I need this too. Sarah placed a hand over his. Then we finished the covenant rite together. No more running. Jack nodded. No more running. That evening, while the children played with an old flashlight and a broken drone, Jack showed Sarah how to use the tools around the camp. She listened closely, asked questions, and even laughed once. Later, when Tavi sneezed, Sarah jumped, but Jack was already there with a tissue. He helped the boy wipe his nose and tucked him into the blanket. Sarah watched silently, hand covering. Her mouth, she whispered, They're already seeing you as their father. Jack looked at the two alien children, and for the first time in years, his heart felt full. The morning sun rose slowly over the dry land. Inside the outpost, soft light passed through the cracked window. Jack was already awake, sitting at the table with an old photo in his hands. A woman and a little girl smiled from the picture. His wife, his daughter, long gone. He didn't look at this photo often, but now, with two alien children sleeping in the next room, his mind couldn't rest. He remembered how his daughter used to giggle when he tossed her in the air, how she called him Daddy with joy. He also remembered the sound of bombs, the heat, the screams, the fire, and how he couldn't save them. His grip on the photo tightened. Behind him, quiet footsteps approached. Sarah stood there holding 2 mugs of hot broth. "You were awake early," she said gently. Jack nodded. "Bad memories don't sleep." Sarah placed the mug in front of him. She didn't ask questions. She sat across the table and waited. He finally spoke. "I lost them in the Earth-Mirak War. We were fleeing the city when the ship was hit. I survived. They didn't." Sarah lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry." Jack looked at her. "That's why I came here. To be alone. To not feel anything anymore." Sarah nodded slowly. "I understand more than you think." She looked down at her hands. "My husband Kieran was a strong worker. Kind. We had little, but we laughed often. When raiders came to our mining town, he stood in front of us and never got up again." Jack swallowed hard. "They called it a rebel attack," she continued. "But it was just greed. Someone wanted our land. The law did nothing. And after his death, I was marked a widow. The clock started ticking." Jack remembered what she told him before. 3 moons, 3 chances, or lose everything. "I went to the council. I begged," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "I said, let me keep my children. I'll work. I'll clean streets." But they only repeated the same words. "Without a bondmate, you are unfit." Jack clenched his jaw. "That's not a law. That's cruelty." Sarah looked up at him. "Yes, and it's legal." They sat in silence again. Jack sipped the hot drink. It helped with the cold, but not the ache in his chest. He looked at her. "You didn't have to run." "I had to," Sarah replied. "Because I knew. No one would fight for someone like me." Jack's voice was quiet. "Maybe now they will." Sarah's eyes softened. Then, they heard a loud crash from the other room. Jack and Sarah rushed in to find Rico and Tavi near the old drone. Its pieces were scattered across the floor. Rico looked guilty. Tavi's eyes filled with tears. "I just wanted to fix it," Rico said, panicking. "I thought if it flies again, Mama would smile." Sarah hurried to calm Tavi while Jack knelt beside Rico. "It's okay," he said. "It was already broken. We'll fix it together next time." Rico looked up. "You're not mad?" Jack smiled. "No. But you'll have to help me pick up every single part." Rico grinned and started gathering the pieces. Sarah watched with quiet wonder. Jack treated her children with care. No yelling, no coldness, just patience. She hadn't seen that in anyone, not even Kieran. After the mess was cleaned, Jack took Rico outside to show him how to check the solar panels. Tavi sat beside Sarah, his head resting on her shoulder. "Mama," he whispered. "Is he really going to stay?" Sarah brushed his hair gently. "I don't know yet, but in her heart, she hoped." Later that evening, Jack stood by the outpost fence looking at the sky. The stars above looked peaceful, but they hid too many broken stories. Sarah walked up beside him. "I've never thanked you," she said, "for giving them safety, and me, dignity." "You don't need to thank me," Jack replied. "You're doing more than most would." She shook her head. "You could have turned me away, but you didn't." He looked at her, his voice lower. "Because I saw myself in you. Not your skin, not your species, just pain." She stepped closer. And now? Jack took a breath. Now I feel something else. Hope. Maybe. Even the start of healing. Sarah's eyes sparkled in the moonlight. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small metal token. This is a marriage seal, she said. The final one. If you still want to complete the bond, you press your thumb here, and it becomes law. Jack stared at it. He didn't answer yet, but he didn't walk away either. The wind carried sand across the lonely ridge as Jack followed Sarah toward a place she called the Circle of Vows. It was not a church, not a courtroom, but to her people, it was sacred. The air was still. The trees stood silent with glowing blue leaves hanging like bells. The ground below had strange symbols carved deep into the rock. It looked old. Older than any machine Jack had worked on. This is where the covenant rite will begin, Sarah said quietly. Jack stood beside her, unsure. What exactly happens here? Sarah looked at him, eyes filled with something between fear and hope. You will be tested, not by me, but by the spirits of my ancestors. Through the trial. Stone. She pointed to a large glowing monolith at the center of the circle. It pulsed faintly like it was alive. Jack stepped closer. So it scans me? Like a lie detector? More than that, Sarah said. It reads intention, heart, history. Jack rubbed the back of his neck. That's a lot for a rock. Sarah smiled. It has never lied. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the trees. The trial stone's glow became brighter. A hum filled the air. It has begun, Sarah whispered. The stone spoke. Its voice echoed inside Jack's mind, not his ears. Step forward, outsider. You seek union. Do you come with truth? Jack took a deep breath and stepped forward. Yes, I'm not here to trick anyone. Do you carry guilt? Jack flinched. He thought of the photo, his family, the screams, the fire. Yes, he admitted. Do you run from love? That one hurt. Jack looked at Sarah, her children, the way they smiled when he cooked, the way she watched him like she still couldn't believe he cared. I used to, not anymore. The glow changed from blue to white. Do you accept these children as yours, knowing they are not of your blood? Jack hesitated. He pictured Rico asking if he was his father. Tavi coughing in his arms, their soft alien faces, and their trust. I accept them. Completely. A warm pulse spread through the ground. Final trial. Prove your intent. Show your protection. Suddenly the symbols on the stone glowed red. The wind screamed. From the woods, a mechanical guardian beast, a trial creature, rose from the ground. It looked like a lion made of metal and light with a long, bladed tail. Jack stepped back. That wasn't in the instructions. Sarah didn't move. You cannot run, face it, or fail, the beast charged. Jack dodged left. His feet slid on the stone, but he kept balance. The beast growled, its voice electric and sharp. Jack reached for a broken branch nearby and held it like a staff. I'm not here to fight, he shouted. The beast didn't care. It leapt again. This time Jack held his ground. The branch cracked as it hit the beast's chest, but Jack didn't stop. He stood between the beast and the place where Sarah and the children waited behind the trees. I said I'd protect them, he yelled. So if this is your test, come at me. The beast paused. Then slowly, it lowered its head. The trial. Stone glowed green. Intent confirmed. The guardian vanished in a flash of light. Only silence remained. Jack stood in the circle, panting, his shirt torn and knees scraped. Sarah ran to him, eyes wide. You didn't run. Jack gave a tired grin. I meant what I said. She looked at him like he wasn't just a man, but something far more rare, a promise. That evening, back at the outpost, Sarah prepared the bonding seal again. The children watched from the corner, holding hands. Even little Tavi seemed better, his breathing steady, his fever gone. Jack sat across from her. This seal, Sarah explained, binds more than name. It means home, trust, future. Jack didn't need more words. He took the seal, placed his thumb on the silver square, and pressed. It glowed. A soft chime echoed around the room. Sarah followed, placing her thumb beside his. The two glows mixed, blue and white. One light. Rico gasped. It's real now? Sarah smiled and nodded. Yes, Rico. It's real. The boy ran to Jack and hugged him around the waist. Then you're really our father. Jack knelt down, hugging him back. Tavi waddled over, sneezing once, then smiled. Can I sleep near you tonight? Jack lifted him gently into his arms. Of course you can. Sarah watched, silent tears in her eyes. For the first time in so long, she wasn't alone, and neither was he. The next morning, the outpost felt different, warmer, brighter, alive. Jack stood by the water pump, fixing a loose valve, while Rico ran around chasing a tiny lizard and laughing. Tavi sat beside Sarah, chewing on dried fruit Jack had packed from Earth long ago. Everything felt peaceful. But the peace didn't last long. A loud buzzing sound came from the sky. Jack looked up. A black transport ship, sleek, official-looking, hovered, in the distance heading toward them fast. He dropped his tools and rushed inside. Sarah already knew. Her face had gone pale. They've come, she said. Collectors. Jack's eyes narrowed. What? But we completed the bond. We passed the test. Sarah stood, quickly grabbing her children. It doesn't matter to them. If they think it's fake or rushed, they'll still try to take them. Jack's fists tightened. Over my dead body. The ship landed with a heavy thud. Dust flew everywhere. The doors opened, and 3 tall armored figures stepped out. Their faces were hidden under black helmets, but their posture showed no emotion. One held a scanner. Another carried restraints. Stay inside, Jack told Sarah. No matter what happens. She nodded, holding her sons close. Jack stepped outside. The leader of the group walked up and scanned him. Human male, unregistered until 30 days ago. Bondmate to Sarah of House Valen. Is this correct? Jack nodded. That's right. Another stepped forward. This bond is sudden, possibly for convenience. We need proof. Jack pointed behind him. We completed the covenant rite. The stone confirmed our intentions. The guardian tested me. I bled for this. Still not enough, the third said coldly. Galactic law requires the mother to choose. In front of witnesses. Right here, right now. Jack turned back toward the doorway. Sarah? She stepped out, holding both boys. Her eyes burned with fear, but also strength. The collector asked her directly, Do you accept this human as your mate by choice? Not for survival, but by will? Sarah looked at Jack. He stood tall, dirt on his face, a cut on his arm from yesterday's trial. But his eyes were steady, kind, real. She thought about the others she had begged, the men who had mocked her, the ones who saw her as a burden, and then she thought about Jack, who risked his life, who protected her sons, who never asked for anything in return. I choose him, Sarah said firmly, not because I must, but because I want to. There was silence. The collector scanned her voice, ran a confirmation through the registry, then nodded. Bond confirmed, case closed. They turned back toward their ship. But before boarding, the last one looked at Jack and said, You may have saved them now, but this choice is forever. Make sure you're ready. Jack didn't reply. He didn't need to. Later, after the ship disappeared into the sky, Jack sat on the porch watching the clouds. Sarah walked up beside him holding 2 cups of broth. You didn't have to stand in front of them like that, she said softly. I did, Jack replied, because this wasn't just about the law anymore. It was about you. She sat down, beside him. Do you regret it? Jack smiled. No. I only regret not meeting you sooner. Sarah looked at him for a long time. Then, slowly, she rested her head on his shoulder. Inside the outpost, Rico and Tavi were playing with tools and pieces of broken drones, laughing loudly. The sound echoed through the hills. "You know," Jack said, "I'm starting to forget what loneliness feels like," Sarah whispered. "And I'm starting to remember what safety feels like." The wind moved gently through the trees. Jack turned toward her. "What happens now?" "We build a home," she replied. "Not just a shelter, a real home." He nodded. "I'd like that." Then she looked into his eyes. "You don't have to pretend anymore. If you wish to leave, you're free." Jack leaned in closer. "I'm not going anywhere." She placed her hand in his. That night, under the stars, the four of them sat outside, eating, laughing, and sharing stories. Rico climbed onto Jack's lap and asked him how humans flew ships. Tavi fell asleep in Sarah's arms. And for the first time in so long, there were no fears, no running, no collectors. Just a family. Real. Chosen. Whole. A gentle rain tapped the roof of the small outpost. For once, the dry planet gave something soft, cool drops and the scent of clean air. Jack stood near the window, holding a worn towel and watching the sky. Behind him, Rico and Tavi laughed as they chased each other around the main room. Their tiny feet thumped on the metal floor. The broken drone Jack promised to fix was now patched with tape and spinning lopsidedly in the corner. Sarah entered from the kitchen, holding a hot pan filled with flatbread and steamed root vegetables. "Dinner," she called. The children ran, to her like birds to seeds. Jack smiled. This felt like a dream, but one made of work, tears, and real choices. He sat down beside them, and they ate together as thunder rolled softly in the distance. After the meal, Jack lit a small fire in the old heater. Sarah tucked the boys into their shared blanket bed, humming a lullaby from her world. It was soft, made of notes that curved and floated, like starlight in sound. Jack watched her from across the room. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. When she joined him by the fire, she looked calm. At peace. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack tilted his head. "For what?" "For choosing us, even when you didn't have to." Jack looked into the flames. "I think I needed to. I didn't know it at first, but something in me was broken. You and the boys. You gave me a reason to start again." Sarah leaned her head against his shoulder. "We were broken too. But maybe broken people can heal each other." He smiled and gently reached for her hand. It was warm. The next morning, Jack gathered tools while Rico followed him like a tiny shadow. "Can I help?" Rico asked. Jack handed him a small wrench. "You sure can? We're building something important today." "What is it?" Jack knelt down. "A new room. For you and your brother." Rico's eyes lit up. "Really?" Jack ruffled the boy's hair. "You're not guests anymore. You're home." They worked through the morning, side by side. Sarah helped carry materials, and even Tavi brought over a few small boards, though he mostly watched and giggled when Jack hit his thumb with a hammer. By sunset, the frame of a new room stood tall beside the outpost. Simple, but strong. Jack sat back, tired but proud. Sarah came over with water. "It's beautiful," she said. "It's just wood and metal." "No," she corrected. "It's proof." "Proof," she nodded. "That you stayed." That night, something unexpected happened. A human transport ship arrived. Jack saw it on the scanner, a colony group, explorers looking for other survivors. When they landed, 2 humans stepped out, surprised to find anyone alive so far out. "Jack," one of them said. "You're still here?" Jack raised a brow. "Do I know you?" "We met on the refugee station during the Earth-Mirak War. Everyone thought you left for the inner colonies." "I did," Jack said, "but not for long." They looked past him, at the alien woman standing nearby holding 2 children. "Is this your—" Jack nodded without shame. "My family." The man blinked. Didn't know you settled with aliens. Jack looked at Sarah, who was smiling nervously, but stood proud. I didn't settle, Jack said. I chose them. After the transport left, offering supplies and news of peace on nearby planets, Jack sat outside with Sarah. Do you think people will judge us? She asked. Jack shrugged. Some might. Does it bother you? He reached for her hand. Not anymore, she nodded. Then I won't let it bother me either. They sat in silence, watching the sky change colors. Above them, 2 moons glowed. 2 different worlds, now side by side, just like them. Later that night, Jack tucked the boys into their new room. Rico had drawn stars on the walls with chalk. Tavi had placed his favorite broken drone beside the bed like a toy guard. Good night, boys, Jack said. Good night, Papa, both said together. He closed the door softly. When he turned, Sarah stood waiting in the hallway. Come to bed, she said gently. Jack smiled and followed her to their small room. There were no more spare beds, no separate spaces. Not anymore. They shared a blanket, and as Sarah lay beside him, her voice barely above a whisper, she said, We were once strangers. Jack pulled her close. Not anymore. She smiled against his chest. I don't feel poor anymore, Jack. I feel rich. He kissed her forehead. You are, and so am I. Outside, the wind passed through the trees, but inside, there was peace, not the silence of loneliness, but the quiet of a real family, together, forever.